So my name is Jeff with Big Hairy Dog, and this is a webinar for version 8, Resale Pro, and I have the agenda. I just put the agenda right on our screen here. So it's creating inventory and purchasing and receiving, and we can just kind of pop back to the main menu to see what's going on and keep track of where we are. And if you have questions, just feel free to jump in. If I'm not making myself clear, our job is to communicate. That's really it right there. So. All right, so merchandise on the top here, departments on the sidebar menu. This copy of Retail Pro is pretty much blank, so I thought it'd be a good training environment for us. So I'm going to click New at the top here, and we'll just define some departments, and we'll talk about departments briefly. And we're not going to do too much here, but categories. When I was in retail before I started doing this. I've been doing this for a few years, but I used to be a store manager for a retail chain, and I could tell you that we had 10 master departments, and I could tell you which 2 of those departments were my main departments, and those 2 departments were men's and women's, and they would be 22% for men's and 26% for women's. The point being that if those 2 departments were down, that was a problem. It didn't really matter what one of the small departments did, so. You have inside every business little tiny vertical businesses, right?
Correct.
Little different kinds of merchandise that are sort of grouped together that require special attention. Anyway, that's what this is. So we could make it apparel, right? We could make it like apparel, and then we could make it men's, and then we could make it tops, for instance. Or we could say, no, men's is so big that men's needs its own department. We could put men's up here, right? Mm. And then we could put tops here, and then we could put tees down here, right? It depends on how deep I want to go. And that's the trick with department codes always, is knowing the place to stop. You don't want to go too deep, but you don't want to go deep enough. So you want to get that middle ground where you can really get a good feel for how your departments are doing and how healthy they are. And anyway, so we're gonna roll with this. We'll make another 1 or 2 departments and call it good. All right, so we'll say men's, right? This is easy over here. This is just the description. And let's go ahead and give ourselves a default margin. So if we say that we're expecting like a 55% margin, then it'll help us with pricing as we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and copy this and new paste. So we'll say polo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and everything else looks good. We'll save that, and that confirmation is going to just really kill me. I should have turned those off. Didn't know they were on. So we'll say copy here and new and paste, and I'm going to change this to bottoms, pants, right? And I'm not sure how much deeper we're really going to go. I think you get the idea what department codes do, right?
Yes.
Now, I've created 3 of these, so when I go back to list view, right, I can see all 3 of those. I could also, these are not bad. I'm going to copy it again, and new paste. We'll change this to WMN, right, and we'll change this to women's.
Correct.
Right, so what we got here is a pretty good example of some pretty decent consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I were to filter for only tees, I could get both these departments. You see what I mean? So
yeah.
Anyway, that's your basic department thing. There's some golden rules generally with departments you should not do. Generally, departments don't represent one item. The exception being items that are exclusive. I mean, not exclusive, but that you want to exclude. Like if you sell labor, you don't want that to be mixed in with merchandise because labor has no cost. I mean, it does, but it's not one you pay in that same way. So sometimes you have a department code that is intended to exclude one item, but otherwise it just generally, there are plenty of item descriptions, right? So if you're looking at analyzing the items, you just need to have them grouped into whatever category is appropriate. Anyway, let's back out of here and let's talk about vendors for a second. Vendors are super easy. We go to merchandise, we go to vendors, and we said click new, and we put a vendor in. So, we only get 3, so I didn't change my field size. All right, we'll roll with it. So right. There we go. I don't know why I'm having like a mental moment there. All right, so that's not. I can't type today either. Well, then again, I never could type, so I don't know if that really counts. All right, so I just put a vendor in that I've seen people use. We could put in here like information if we had like a contact there. We could put in information about that contact. We could put in phone numbers if we want. Okay, generally we don't have stars in phone numbers. We could put addresses in and zip codes, and then down here we could put in an account number. This would be the number that the vendor issued back to us, right? So that when we print purchase orders and things, our customer number would print on the document. It would speed up their ability to process our transactions.
Right.
Terms here, it would default all like transactions to those terms. So this would be your default term. So for instance, if I get no discount for 30 days, I get net 30, right?
Yeah.
Or I could say 2%, 10, and then I could say net 30, right? I'm just going to go back to net 30. So 0% for 30 days is net 30. Anyway, so that defaults this vendor to. Now, of course, I could go enter more vendors here, but for our purposes in training, that's probably sufficient.
Yes.
There's not a ton going on here. We will come back maybe and look at history. History's cool, but let's push on through for the moment. So item and styles. Okay, we don't really have anything that's item-ish, do we? All right, well, we could play with that. So merchandise, inventory, and here's some stuff that I forgot was even in here. Nice. It's okay. Let's click, we got item view and style view. So 2 different ways to view the inventory. Let's click into style view and let's go to form view on the top, and let's talk about a style. Let's click new, and let's say that we want a department code of, let's say men's t-shirts, and vendor code. Now with both department codes and vendor codes, I can click the button and select, or I could type it in, and if I get it right, it accepts it. If I get it wrong, if I typed in like whatever, if I typed in something else, it would take me out to the menu and make me pick one. Now, styles. What's a style? Let's talk about a style for a quick second. A style it's an item that comes in more than one color or size or both, right?
Right.
So with a shirt, t-shirt, if I'm saying which t-shirt sold best, I don't care if the white large one sold better than the red small one between 2 different styles. I just care which style did better, right?
Yes.
All colors, all sizes, I don't care which one is doing better. So that's a style. A style is basically a family of products that share the same vendor, the same department code, the same style number, right? Now, generally speaking, in the description fields, we would dedicate one of these to like the style number, whatever that would be from the vendor, and then when the other one we would put in, a description of some kind, right? So we could put in whatever we want to call it, t-shirt of some kind. whatever the vendor calls it, whatever we want to call it, right? But so typically one of these would house the style number and the other one would house a description. We need a description for the receipt and, you know, so we can all talk about it normally, but we need a style number so that we can track it as a unique item. So if you were putting stuff in and you put this t-shirt in and then I didn't know it and I came behind you and I tried to type it in, I would hope that the system would recognize that it's already been input. You see what I'm going with that?
Yes.
We don't want to put an item in twice. You put an item in twice, what happens is you receive it on one SKU and you sell it on the other, and then you get an inventory control problem. It's not real. But it has real costs. So, all right, so anyway, we've got some basic definitions in here. Let's put a cost on it, whatever, and let's put a price.
Okay. This is coming through.
All right, so down here we have no scales yet. Do you know what a scale is?
Like the size scales, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Now, we don't have one yet, so I'm going to have to type this one in manually, and then we'll go make one and make sure that we can do both. So to type one in manually, I have to get to, notice that on the sidebar menu here that the Edit Attribute Size button is not currently showing. It's grayed out, right? I can't get to it. If I put my focus down here in the grid, it becomes available, right?
Oh, okay.
Now, that's just a weird little thing. There's a shortcut. See, so rather than click here and then go all the way over and click here and then all the way back here, this little red bullseye right here in the upper left corner, if we double click that, it just opens up the little thing and I can skip right to it. So I'm going to say we got small, we got medium, we got large, we got extra large, right? We got 2XL, say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over here we put some colors: red, white, blue. We'll be patriotic today, right?
Yeah.
Now I don't need a color for each one, do I?
No.
No, you don't, because they're opposite axes. The one's on the top, one's on the side. You see what I mean? So no, you don't. So when we build a style, we put in the sizes and or colors. You don't have to have a color. You don't have to have sizes, depending on what you're doing, right? But once you get them in there, then you want to define them left to right. So I'm going to put in like a 0. And now a 0, since I'm in inventory, I'm not on a purchase order, it's going to define the item, but not put a quantity on hand, right? So we're going to go ahead and do zeros here. Now notice that I'm going left to right, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing that on purpose. And the reason I'm doing it this way is it assigns SKUs to the items in the order that I put the zeros in there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if I put them right to left, then the SKUs would be in a different order.
If I went like down the column and then went down the next column and then went down the next column, it would put the SKUs in those orders, right? So if I go to item list here, you see that the small 810, 811 is the medium, 812 is the large, 813 is the extra large, and 814 is the 2XL. So if you're selling this one and somebody says, oh, I need a large, you can go, oh, well, this one's 811, then the large must be 812, right?
Yes.
See, so if we put our data in correct when we build it, there's assumptions that the salespeople can make about it in the field. And there's also a nice little sorting bonus we get, the ability to put things in the right run. So let's take a look here real fast. Now, if I go back to my item view here, and out of curiosity pop back in here like that, and so far it's holding. But sometimes what happens is that these things reorganize themselves. Well, let's hop back here and let's just do it. So let's just say we've got this style right here, right? I'm going to go into my filtered view. And in my filtered view here, I am going to ask it for that particular style. So we're going to say clear all. Always want to clear all when you're doing a filtered view. And we're going to say ABC. That's my fake style number. And I'm going to ask it to be organized by color.
I'm sorry.
And then
How did you get there?
Okay, perfect. Let's just cancel this. This is called a filtered view.
Oh, okay. So I have to click on the style and then filter, right?
Right, so I'm sitting in inventory, right? I'm just sitting in inventory. I'm just sitting here in a big, massive amount of product. Everything is on my screen right now. And I'm going to say I want to filter it. I want to filter it to only this one style that I'm looking for, right? So I'm going to filter it to that style number. But I'm going to ask it to organize it by color and then by size.
Okay.
You follow? Now,
yes.
What's going on with the sizes? Why isn't it small, medium, large? So these are all blue, right? These definitely are all blue. But it doesn't start with small, does it? Why doesn't it start with small?
I don't know. Because you didn't put it in the zeros in the correct order? Or
No, because computers are amazingly stupid, okay? I asked the computer to alphabetize this by size. Alphabetically, what comes first, 2 or S?
Yeah.
Numbers come before letters, correct?
Correct.
And then L comes before M, which comes before S, and before X, right?
Yes.
So that's actually exactly what I asked for, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now let's cancel this filter. Let's go back in and ask again. This time, though, I'm going to say I'd like to organize it by color and then by item number, which bumps size to 3, but who cares? So why item number?
So that
because when I built it, I built it left to right. I built the small before I built the medium, I built that before the large, right? So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Then, of course, the next color, red, starts over, right? So does that make sense why I built the style left to right?
Yes.
I wanted to finish red before I started white, and I wanted to finish white before I started blue. So that I get this little added benefit of having the numbers be assigned in sequence. It's small, it's trivial, but it's so nice to be able to filter the screen and have your sizes come out in natural runs, right? So, all right, just a little FYI sort of on building styles. So when you build a style, I am going to point out something else that's weird. When you're building a style, everybody wants to click new right here. We're going to click new here in a minute. We got to do 2 quick things, and then we'll build an item. But if you click new here, and you're just in inventory, and you're putting in an item, and that item is really meant to be a style. So let's say we're putting in, women's top tee, right? Okay, from the same vendor, okay? And it's got a style number. And it's a t-shirt. Beautiful, everything looks good. I get down here and I say, oh yeah, it's black. And then I say, oh man, it's got more than one size. What do I put in here? So what I do then is I click style view, right? And I say yes. Okay, what I just did here is I defined an item with no size. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this mistake. What I should have done is I should have abandoned that edit altogether, or I should have finished the first item. One or the other. But I'm going to go ahead and continue and make this mistake. So the other thing I want to do before I make this mistake is I want to go into this scale button. If you haven't gone into scales before, you can click on scales, either from the regular screen or the style view, doesn't matter. And you can click add, and you can give them a name. I'm going to call this S-2XL. I try to keep the name simple, S, M, L, XL. Nice. It's a special size. And 2XL. All right, so we're going to click OK. Now, I could make as many of these as I want. I could keep clicking add. I'm just going to click OK. And we're going to go ahead and click edit. And now, of course, I can now assign these. I can assign these sizes, right? Boom.
So you create this too.
Now, what's going on with this 0?
It's not part of the.
It's
Doesn't it's
not
the
part.
original item. It's lost. It's the original lost item.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and put in a cost here, whatever, and now I'm going to go ahead and say we carried it in 2 colors. So I'm going to go out here to edit attribute and size. I'm going to use the shortcut and pop into there, and we'll put in white, and we'll click OK, and then we're going to go ahead and put our zeros in left to right. So we're going to say small, medium, large, extra large, 2XL, and we're going to come back down and do it again, right? And now we're going to go ahead and say save, and yep, and go back to item view and list, and there's my new style, except I got small through 2x and small through 2x, but I've got an extra item here, don't I?
Yeah.
So that extra item, of course, that's the original one I started that I never finished. And it's what I call an orphaned item. It has no purpose. It needs to be deleted. So if you see that kind of thing, if you see styles that have these orphaned items that have no color or no size, it's because somebody clicked edit in the wrong place, and then they weren't smart enough to exit out of that or to at least finish it. If I'd given this one a size, right? If I'd given it a small, then it would have had a home in the grid that was going to be created next. But I didn't. I never gave it a size, which is unfortunately all too common. So anyway, if we have an item that is not style driven, right? So for style driven items, you want to go to style view, you want to click new in the style view, you want to do all your work in the style view. But for items like a souvenir shot glass, it comes one way. It's not a style, doesn't have more than one size. Its size is shot glass, right? Its color is clear. It's got a logo on the side, right? You click new here in inventory. You can either do it in this view here, list view, or form view. It doesn't matter, whatever you're more comfortable with. And we put in our department code. Now we don't have a department code for that, so I'm going to go out and click new, and we'll say giftware, glass.
Like this one?
That's good enough for me. I'm just going to go with that. Nice. Really ought to learn how to type one of these days, huh? It's overrated. All right, so and click save, and click yes, and click OK. So the point there being that I can build that department or vendor, right? I could build the vendor the same way on the fly.
Oh.
So I'm just going to cheat. Go ahead and use one of them. We'll say it's part number J12345. Perfect. And this is a shot class. Well, we could say, logo shot class, I guess, right?
Mhm.
And I don't really need a color and a size. I mean, I could put a size on it. I'm going to flip the form view, 6 and 1/2 dozen, right? So, size would be shot glass, but it already says it's a shot glass, right? It's taxable, don't need a scale. I'm going to say, the cost is $2.35, and we sell them for $9.99. Sweet. And click save. Right? So putting in a single item is pretty easy. You just type in the fields you need, either in list view here or form view. And we can move columns around, right? I can get rid of columns I don't need, and I can move columns that are more important to me where they need to be, right? So size should be here with color, description 3 I don't need, and quantity, I usually like quantity to be kind of right there. And what's missing for me, and this isn't a webinar about screen design, but let's go ahead and right click this and go into interface, page manager. Every field that you have is built into your page managers and design tools. And we do have webinars on that stuff too, but I'm just going to go ahead and add margin % because all of us like to see what the margin is. It's easier to price things if you know you're in the right range. All right, so we built some style items. We built a single item. Any questions so far on basic inventory input?
No, not yet.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we looked at departments, vendors, items, and styles. Perfect. Let's talk about some of these other issues here real quick, and we'll kind of blow through them, I suspect. So we'll take non-inventory first here. Non-inventory is just a status that an item could exist in. So if let's just enter a new item, and let's say that this is, we don't have a department for this, so I'm just going to say, I don't know if this is the right department really. All right, so if I was going to sell ski waxing, like it's a service, right?
Oh,
So I'm going to sell this, okay? It doesn't have a vendor, and you know the part number is whatever I want to make it, right? So I'm going to say it's BHD001, and this is ski wax, right? I'm going to wax their skis for them, right? And I'm going to charge. It has no cost. I mean, there is a cost, the labor and the wax, but it's not something I can tangibly put a fixed amount on, right? So I'm going to say we do this for whatever, 20 bucks. And now, form view, do we have the field we're looking for? No, we don't. So let's go ahead and say save. And let's go ahead and right-click this thing and go into beautiful little screen designer and find that field there called non-inventory. Okay, so now we have a field here called non-inventory that we can, in fact, check off. We can put a check mark in that box. Now, if we put a check mark in that box, this item, the on hand, will remain 0 forever. So does that make sense?
yes.
So I can sell it. I can sell it 100 times today and look at the on hand, it would still say 0. Now, it would show up in sales reporting. I could absolutely say how many have I sold and go back and run a sales report and find out. But I wouldn't have to worry about taking the negative 100 that's in inventory and zeroing it out from time to time, right? There's no point. I'm never going to receive this. All right, so moving on, price levels. Price levels is an interesting topic. Every one of these items in inventory could potentially have more than one price. In fact, I could have 244 or something prices if I want to go out. And right now, Retail Pro starts with 2 price levels, but in system preferences, you can expand that quite a bit. Not sure why you'd want that many price levels. Price levels can be used for a lot of things. You know, let's do a simple thing here. Let's just do something really cool. Let's take this item here, item 835. Let's say it has a regular price of $35.99. Okay, now let's go out of here and let's go into options, system preferences, and let's go and take a look at, where is it here? Discounts, bring original price from number 2, save, make a receipt, put item 835 on the receipt, 835, enter. And that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. So we're at 1. What did I do here? Okay, let's go back, double check ourselves here. So options, system preferences, point of sale, bring from 2. Okay, and let's go back to inventory. Options, price level, we're at 1.
Advanced inventory pricing. Let's change the price and discounts. This is more me, but I want to just because like my little thing with every because of colors. That's super big checkout for you. We don't know that. And then the next one is gonna be
Well, my example's not working out real well for me, and that's always kind of exciting on a webinar. But normally, what would happen there, and maybe there's something else turned on that I'm missing, is it should be defaulting back to $25.99 is the price, and it should be pulling the original price of $35.99, and thereby showing an automatic discount. But that's one possible thing we can do with price levels. The other things we can do is we can assign price levels to customers. So we could have a VIP price level, or we could have employee pricing. We could assign them to employees. I guess there's quite a lot you can do with them. The one thing I would warn you about, though, with that is I would caution you that if you build a price level, you got to maintain it. It means you got to put a price in there for everything. So that's the fine line you walk with price levels, is that when you're entering these things, you can have a screen where you can see your prices, but you've got to add those to every item. Now there is a price manager, which we don't have time to go through, but I'll point out. So under merchandise price cost manager right here, that tool there would allow you to take and copy prices and take 10% off or whatever and write them to different price levels.
Like to different item numbers, you mean?
What's that?
Like if I wanted to get an item number and a specific style of a shirt and have it at 30% off, then that's what I would use.
Right. Typically, if you want to have it on sale all the time, the thing I was trying to do and failed somehow was to set up an item that had two different prices right on it. So this item right or above it, right here, this one, I think I set up correctly. I got two different prices on it, and then what you normally would do is you would have your active price level. So so you see at the bottom of the screen here, price level PR there is 001. That should be your active price. And then in system preferences, what I said is, and it's probably still going to fail, but I'm not sure why. I've made this work dozens of times. I'm not worried about that part, but it's just frustrating me that I'm on a webinar and it's not working. But in here, you say bring original price from price level 2. So I put the price that I'm selling it at in price level 1. I put the compare at price in 2. I tell it to bring the original price from price level 2, and it should show an automatic discount then at point of sale. Let me check store assignments. So use price-based stores is not turned on. Yeah, I don't see any obvious reason why it's not performing the way I was expecting.
We use a couple of different price levels. We use retail, wholesale, employee, and I think that's it. And then a max wholesale.
That's weird. Let's go out and do the options, workstation preferences, documents. No. Well, all right. So let's do this then. So you have several price levels. Yeah, I set you guys up back in the day. I went on site there and worked with like
Mariella?
Mayella, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, she's super. She's great to work with. She was very, very sharp, very, very intelligent.
Yeah, she's great at Retail Pro.
She's quite good. She is quite good. I would agree with that. And I think she had a pretty good teacher too. Oh, sorry. So I'm not sure why this one's backwards, but we can at least achieve what we want to do here by me just swapping these two around a little fast. I'm not sure why it insists on pulling level 2. I'm not sure. I mean, I could clean it up and go fix the data, but I'm not sure it's worth our time on a webinar. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so you can do exactly that. You guys are doing it. It's still not working. That's just great. Yeah, I don't know why. All right. So yeah, you guys are doing lots of things, and she's maintaining those price levels so that with an employee price level, you can go into the customer database, and on a customer, you can assign a price level. So we could assign a specific price level, and you can name them too. We're not going into preferences in him, but you could have named. I could have named it employee, and then when I go to buy something as an employee, if all the prices are in there, and that's a lot of work to get them in there, but once they're in there, then you're golden. People can just go and it saves a ton of time at point of sale. So it's a little work on the back end to maintain those price levels, but the time saving at point of sale is enormous. So yeah, it's a pretty good trick. Anyway, multi-vendor. Multi-vendor is the ability to try. It's two things. First off, multi-vendor is the obvious thing, right? But it's more than that. So if we go to form view here, this is our multi-vendor box right here. So if we back up and look at this, this has a vendor of PM. And if I go to edit, I could go down here and I could add a different vendor. We don't have another vendor, so I'm just going to call, let's just put in Levi or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll click save and okay. So now you see that it could be that I could buy this from more than one person. I could buy from this person or the PM vendor, either one. So examples of that would be, you guys don't sell bicycles, but if you sold bikes and bike parts, basic bike derailleur that you might sell a Shimano derailleur, you're not buying it from Shimano unless you speak Japanese. And there's dozens of distributors that would sell you a Shimano derailleur. So it's the exact same part from the exact same manufacturer, but you can buy it from, probably 24 different places in your part of the country easily. So, so there are many items that you have more than one choice to buy from. That's the primary purpose of this box down here, is to be able to put a secondary vendor in and to put a secondary order cost. So from one person it costs you $12, from the other person it costs you $10, right, or whatever. So that's one purpose of this box. The other purpose, which I find to be somewhat more useful, in fact, is that you could have one item that has multiple UPC codes. Like, for instance, a vendor sells you cheap sunglasses and they're assorted. I mean, the vendor supplies them. They all have different UPC codes, but I'm not tracking the individual UPC codes, and I don't care. They give me a different assortment every time I order, right?
Mm-hmm.
See, so for me, it's just a cheap sunglass. That's all it is. And when they come in, I just want to put the UPCs down here and be able to scan them out. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm selling the same one over and over again. I don't care what the style is. They change all the time. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really slick little trick you can do, is you can put different UPC codes down there, and it'll find the same SKU over and over again. So if I hit save on this one, and we go back to the point of sale, what is this item real quick before I run out of here? Oh, we're still on 835, right? So now on 835, if I'm on a receipt, let's see if this works. I'm so far 0 for 1 here. So if I put a number in like that, or if I put in this number here, okay, not found, nice. Did I type it in wrong? Oh, I typed it in wrong. So I can type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or I could type 835, right?
Right.
And all three do the exact same thing.
Nice.
So that's what multi-vendor box can do. It can allow you to have multiple lookups for the same item, which, like I said, I find that to be more common than multiple vendors. I mean, there are legitimate businesses, the bike industry, we used to sell a lot of film, and you can buy Kodak from the distributor or from the manufacturer. You know what I mean? Not so much anymore with digital cameras, but there are definitely legitimate items that you could have multiple lookups, and you could put them in this column, and you could put them in this column over here. So you can get 12 in this box here. There's a maximum in version 8. Version 9 is unlimited. Version 9, you could put hundreds on one if you wanted to. That's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Anyway, serial numbers. I don't think much people are using serial numbers out there, but I will mention in passing that every item could be defined as a serialized item, and we're not even seeing the fields here, are we? Basically, with serial numbers, you have to turn it on. There is a field here for serial numbers, and I'm not seeing it, of course, because that would be way too easy. Oh, there it was right there, serial, boom. So you have to set an item to be serial tracked, either full or partial. And then from that point on, when you receive it, it'll require a serial number, and when you sell it, well, actually, full requires it at both ends. Partial, you can choose where you want to require the serial number. So, for instance, California and the rest of the United States, in fact, handguns, surprise, surprise, they're required to be full track serial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to know the serial number you receive and when you sell it, and you got to be able to tell the, firearms folks when you received it, specifically that one, and when you sold it. Whereas bicycles in California, they're not required to be tracked during receiving, only when you sell them. So if the police have a bike they recover and they come to you and say, you sold this bike, who bought it? You got to be able to go and find out and tell them. So you got to track it when you sell the serial number, but not when you receive it.
Got
so that's
it.
partial. So if you guys start selling handguns on the border, that's a little scary. Anyway,
Yeah.
then you'd have to get into the whole serial number thing, which is probably more hassle than it's worth. All right. So anyway, count sheets. Count sheets are just tricks. They're literally just a trick that we do in here. Right. So these here are doc designs. That's all these are right there. And this one here is not a terribly exciting doc design, but if I go out and I click that, it's probably going to be angry with me now. That's Retail Pro's sort of default doc design, which is actually better than I expected it to be, but not much. Oh, I know what's going on. All right, fair enough. So let's get that out of there, and let's take a look at what's going on here. So we're going to wander out here into my laptop, and we're going to grab some doc designs. So we've created little doc designs out here that do different things. We'll grab these here and we'll copy them, and we will go put them in. So if I go look at our local C drive here, and we go into Retail Pro, and the design folder, and doc designs, and inventory, and I paste these in here, they will now be available for me right here. So for instance, if I were to say, like here, if we were to say, filtered view, clear all, department codes, I'm going to say men's and women's. So men's tees and women's tees, right? And I'm going to say, give me all those tees. Now I'm going to say print on the top, and I'm going to choose this thing here called count sheet, and I'm going to ask for all listed records, and we'll just preview it here. And it's actually giving me every single item that I asked for, and it's current on hand, which is 0, and a place for me to count it, right?
Yes.
Just a doc design trick, that's all. It's a handy one. I mean, it is a cool one, but it's just a trick. The same thing we could do with this one here. This is if you were going to pre-count these for physical inventory you were going to conduct later on, like tomorrow or the next day, and you wanted to say there's 35 of those, and there's 6 of those, and there's 17 of those, and then you wanted to seal the box so you wouldn't actually have to count them on the day of inventory. That's a pre-count sheet.
Is there a way that you could send me those in like a printout instruction, or there's no printouts for that?
Yeah, no, it's pretty easy. All you do is, if I could email those to you, sure, not a problem. And all you'd have to do is you'd have to save the file. So the file would look like this. The file would look just like that. It would say item pre-count, .rpt, basically, and it has to go into that folder. It has to go into the inventory folder, which is in, Retail Pro 8, R Pro Design, Doc Design. So this part here, never changes. All your doc designs are in that Doc Designs folder.
Oh, okay, so got it.
Once you're in Doc Designs, you could go down to receipts, right? There's receipts down here, boom. There's sales orders, there's transfers, flips, there's You know, everything's here. Your XE out. There's your XE out designs. You know, so all your designs are in Retail Pro, 8, R Pro, Design, Doc Design. That's where that path over and over again. That's where the designs are. So these, of course, these are inventory designs. They have an inventory schema, so they would then go in the inventory folder. Be careful in here because there's two types of documents. So for instance, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different designs here. But when I click print, I don't see 10 here, do I?
No.
That's because some of them are tag designs. There's the other 4 right there.
Mm-hmm.
So just be careful when you're in there. Realize that some of these here are tag designs and some of these are document designs. That's all.
Okay, great.
And I see Evelyn's, and it looks like now there's looks like there's 2 Casa Rauls here.
Yes.
And which one are you with? There's Mark and David and Henry.
No. Moses and Patty?
Yeah, Patty, gotcha. Okay. And so, and now I don't see your email there. So, well, no, since we're on a webinar, I don't think it's a good idea. I actually, never mind. I got your email because your email's in the webinar, right? I can go get it. It's fine.
Yeah, I can put it in the chat box.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I have it. I just realized that it's right there. It's taking the web thing forever to get in there, but yeah, I got it. Yeah, perfect. Not a problem. Yeah, I could send those to you. That's easy. All right, so how we doing? It's about halfway in. We got a lot to cover. We should get on with the things, and I'll send you those after we're done with this. All right, so back to here real quick here. I will the last thing we had in their inventory. The last one that I transferred over here is this thing here, this cheat sheet. This is the ability to print out a bunch of barcodes at point of sale. So if you have items that you can't tag, you could print a cheat sheet, and you have to filter for them, group them together, and then print out something like this, and you can have this at point of sale to sell something pretty quick. Anyway, okay, moving on. Purchase orders. Okay, so purchase orders basically takes everything we've looked at so far and sort of adds a layer to it. So with purchase orders, we go to purchasing, purchase order, and we click new, and we can give it a PO number, or we can let it stick with the PO number it gets. It got number 1. But I could put in here whatever I want to put in here. I could put in here like this. You know, I can do whatever I want to do. Here I just put in the vendor code and then the date and then number 1. And I can say what location what store I want to ship this to. I can put my vendor code in here. I could also build a vendor code. Notice that it defaults to net 30. I could change that if I wanted to. With dates here, I could go like, I want it to ship tomorrow +1. I want T enter. That's today. T is today +30 enter. Just date tricks is all that is. And that fills in the header of the PO. So I've got a vendor, I've got a PO number, I've got a store, I've got some dates. So now I can go to choose edit items over here. And I could say, okay, I want to see filtered view. Clear all. So I'm going to type in PM there, or I could have selected it. And it finds all my items, right? And because we built them, because of the way we built them, you see how they organize themselves natively. Very nice. So I could, if I wanted to, go through here and put, you know, order quantities on these, right? Or I, you know, so I could do this correctly, right? Like that. Or I'm going to flip down here. I could go to Style View. So why can't I go to Style View? That is kind of odd. I'm going to click OK. Nice. Let's go back to Choose Edit Items. Oh, I know. Right. That makes total sense now in a weird sort of freaky way. You can't get the Style View while you're in a filtered view. Odd, but true. Anyway, here in a filtered view, the bottom of this section here is yellow. It's off colored, right? So you see, I can order whatever I want to do down here, and then I could go OK and go back to my purchase order, and it brings those back with me. So the point is, in Choose Edit Item mode, whether I'm in Style View or Item View, if the column is yellow, it's a document quantity. It's not an on-hand quantity. I could have my on-hand quantity here if I want. I could see what my on-hand is. And I can see it right next to the quantity I'm choosing to order. The point is that the doc quantity columns is where I get to say I'm ordering for, and then I can ordering them at this cost here, or I could change the cost. And I could change the price, but only on the document, in this case, the purchase order. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So also, though, this button here says Choose Edit Items. So if I was out here and I went to Style View and I said New, I could actually build new product and write the descriptions to inventory and the quantities to the purchase order. Now, it would be exactly the same as what we did. I'm not going to go through and build another item. It would be just like building the ones we built earlier. You put the style in, you put the description in, you put the cost and the price, and you get your scale at the bottom, and you put quantities in, except you're not putting zeros in. You're putting real quantities in. You're putting, well, you could be putting zeros in. If you were just going to order the medium and the large and the XL for now and expand it later, you might put a zero on the small. A zero would build the SKU but not order it right now. Now, if you're multi-store, you can also go into, and we're not really into a distribution or transfer webinar, but there's a marked for option here that allows you to have items in this PO that are marked for other locations. That's handled through the whole allocation. So down here on allocation patterns or items allocation, we could allocate these out to other locations. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to call this pattern 50-50. Down here, I'm going to put a 1, and I'm going to put a 1 on this one too. So if both locations have 1, then their allocation is even, correct?
Correct.
So if I take that pattern then, and let's close this and let's go back. I had to save it. Now I'm highlighted on it. Let's click Apply Pattern. And if I pick an item and I click Items Allocation, you see that it took the quantities and it broke it out by store. See, store 0 and store 1 here. 1 and 1, 6 and 6, 12 and 12, right?
That is awesome.
So, and when you do that and you click Save, you could then generate a transfer order. And we're really not into distribution, like I said on this webinar, but the point is that you could write a purchase order that's pending, and you could then generate the TO using the marked for values, and it would generate a transfer order. So now you have 2 order documents. You have a PO and a TO, both waiting for that receiving. And when you receive against this, which we have to go do in a minute, it will warn us about the transfer order that's pending.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a quick peek at our agenda here, make sure we're still on track. So we've got inventory, we've got creating PO, yes, editing and deleting, right. A PO is not carved in stone. So what I mean by that is that you can go back and edit this at any time, forever. So once we receive this against this PO, unless there's additional product coming like back orders, do we need the PO after we receive against it?
Yes.
Why?
Reference.
No, the PO is a plan. The PO is a plan. We don't need the plan. We need what actually happened. So the answer is no. I don't need the PO really. I might need it temporarily just to see if a vendor is treating me badly. I order 50, you give me 5. I order 100, you give me 25. You know what I mean? I might need it for that, but overall, no. When I look back at last year, I don't care what I ordered. I care what I got.
Correct.
So purchasing voucher, new voucher, and hopefully you have POs written, because POs make receiving much more efficient. I mean, 200% more efficient easily. So with a receiving and with a PO, I'm just gonna go grab the PO. I only got one, so it makes it easier to find. But still, I click out there, I find the PO, I click OK, and it tells me immediately that I have a transfer order associated with this PO, right? Okay, so I reference the PO. I got the vendor name in there. I got the account number. It looks all pretty good. Where's the items? There are no items, right? That's because vendors don't always ship exactly what we ask for, do they? So we have to go out to the PO items, and we have to say what we're going to get. Now, out here, I could say, yeah, I got 2 of those, and yeah, I got 12 of those, right? I could go through here and type these numbers over here in this column, couldn't I? Or I could click Receive Due and fill in the column all the way down. And then if I was short shipped one, I could zero that one out, couldn't I? So that might be a little faster. Usually vendors ship, you know, they're in business to sell stuff. They're going to ship as many as they have. Mostly they're going to ship complete or close to it, right?
Right.
So we click OK, we bring back what we're receiving, and at that point we make sure that the piece count matches and that everything's good here. If we have a problem with that, a little trick here. If you hold this, then you go into the held menu. There it is. You could print this out. So here, with this printout, I could actually have this in my hand, and I could go through the list and compare my quantities to the packing slip, right? And if I was off by 1 piece or something, I could find it.
Oh,
That's just it's a nice little trick. Sometimes when you got a big receiving that's got 300 SKUs on it, and you're off by like 1, you know what I mean? It's hard to find. Anyway, here I am in the held menu, right? I'm going to go ahead and say unhold this, and there it is. It's right there for me, and I'm going to go ahead and say at point of receiving, typically we're not involved in reconciliation, and all we really care about is that the pieces all be correct here. So I'm going to go ahead and say print update, and we'll go ahead and say, you know, boom, that's done. And do you want to save it? No, I don't. Perfect. So that's now done. So let's go back and look at the purchase order. And the purchase order should now show that received, see received quantities right there. Most everything's received, in fact, right? So if we look at where is the, right, so it's 0.58% unfilled, see, right? So it's less than 1% unfilled. Only the 2 pieces I didn't receive, right, out of whatever total pieces are on there. So it's mostly done. Now, if this vendor doesn't do back orders, then we're done. Now, if I leave this in here and I don't clean it up, and I do that over and over again, I might end up with like 50 POs for this Prairie Mountain vendor, right? But maybe there's only one of them that's actually active. You follow? Now, when I'm a receiving clerk and I go to receive against Prairie Mountain, and I'm like, oh crap, there's all these POs out there, and I got to wade through them to find out one PO that I'm supposed to be using today. See, that slows people down. It also shows those 2 pieces that are never coming as still being on order, right? And they're not on order. If the vendor doesn't do back orders, this is done. So what we would do then is we would delete this and archive it. Now, if we then decide that those 2 pieces are going to show up or something changes, I would go into archived POs, and in archived POs I could find this PO, and I could restore the PO. Now it's back to being active again. So you want to keep things deleted and archived as often as possible to keep your incoming PO files clean as possible, to keep everything running smooth and oiled, shall we say. Okay, so I think we can receive against a PO. We reference the purchase order and we go to PO items. That's all there is to it. Without referencing a purchase order, well, you can do that. Absolutely can do that, and there are many people that do. I do not recommend it, except on an exception basis, because what you're doing when you're receiving without a PO is you're doing all the work you would have had to do in the PO, right? I got to go out to choose edit items, and I got to filter for my items, and I got to find all those items and or build all those items, right? So if you receive without a PO, you can bottleneck receiving, basically. That's what I'm worried about. If you have, you know how it is, you got a couple dozen POs out, and of course nothing happens on Monday, nothing happens on Tuesday, and then Wednesday you get like 4 big shipments all at once. So if you don't have those POs built, then it's going to just be impossible to get all 4 receivings done today.
True.
So having the POs written ahead of time, what it really does, it allows you to manage your work. And that sounds weird. I know it totally sounds weird, but entering the PO requires you to enter the items and get all the prices and costs and everything all lined up, right? And you could start a PO and you could save it and then you could finish it tomorrow, right?
Right.
I mean, the stuff's not here yet. You got 2 weeks probably in ship time before it gets there. So you got plenty of time to front load this thing. And then the receiver, when they get it, they just go to PO items. They pick the ones that are coming in, and boom, they can update that and print the tags. So we don't want to put too much of a burden on receiving. We want to keep receiving running as smooth as possible. Now, the vendor stops by. The vendor's got some stuff in his trunk. You're like, yeah, we need some of those. We'll buy them. Yeah, all right, receive them without a PO, right? I mean, for 5 items, who cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the exception I'm talking about. It does happen that you get weird little exceptions where you receive a few items without a PO. But anytime we know about the order ahead of time, we should be getting the PO in the system. It really, really makes receiving run so much better. Fixing mistakes, yes, or correcting things. We're talking a little bit about reconciliation and about freight and item costs or quantity, right? So there's 3 pieces to our receiving as we see it. So basically, we write a purchase order, we have an act of receiving, and then we have an act of reconciliation. So let's say that, you know, we receive something on Monday, but we don't get the invoice till Friday, which would be still good. Sometimes it takes a week or 2 to get the invoice, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say we receive 100 pieces, and in that week we sell, you know, 3 or 4 of those pieces, right? Mm-hmm. So then we go back to the voucher, and on the voucher, if it's not the same day, we're not going to reverse it. So if I've got a cost problem, so I come to the voucher, I go to form view, and how do I know if I have a cost problem? Well, I look at the subtotal. Okay, if the subtotal on the invoice doesn't balance with the subtotal on on my voucher, that means that something down here, either this or this, is wrong. Now, if this number up here balances, then I receive the correct quantity at the correct cost, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now, what's the big deal? If it's off, can I just click edit and go fix it? I mean, what the heck, right? I can just come down here and like change that 750 to 752, right? Mm-hmm. Click save. Oh, wait a second. What does that mean right there? So when we receive product, it's not just about receiving, is it?
Mm-mm.
So for instance, when I make a receiving voucher, here's my little voucher, and I hit update, it passes through the inventory file, doesn't it? And it
Mm-hmm.
updates all these various records. And what does it update? Well, it updates quantity, right? For sure, right? What else does it update? It also updates cost. doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if I've got 10 of these, and they're at, let's just keep the math simple here. We got 10 of them, and they're $10 each, right? Okay, but it just so happens I have 10 of them in inventory, and they're $8 each in inventory. So when this thing goes through inventory and comes out on the other side, it becomes a history document, which we call a former voucher, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the cost? Is it 8 or is it 10? Which one is it? Well, it's neither, of course. It's 9, right? Because we do cost averaging, right? So if we got $100 and we got $80, we got $180 divided by 20, right? It's $9 per, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens is we get a cost averaging. So what happens is the $10, it writes to another field called order cost, right? There's a field out there called order cost that holds the $10 for the next order, if that makes sense. But our actual owned cost gets averaged.
Okay.
So now we sell some, right? We make a few sales. Now, what cost do they go out at? They go out at $9, right? That's what their cost is. Now, we get an invoice, and we compare that invoice. That's my little invoice right there. There's my little invoice. There's my invoice, and we compare these two, and they don't tie out. There's a problem with them, right? So then I have to return this out of the system, bring it back over to the other side, and push it back through with the corrected number. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because this process of receiving is very, very closely tied to accounting. It feeds directly into accounting. So if we credit inventory here with some numbers and they're wrong, we have to debit them back out. We have to make a correcting credit, right? That's how accounting works. Not that I want to be an accountant, because, man, I took one class in college, I understood it was not for me. But I get the basics. Okay, so back here, we don't want to do this. Editing this former voucher does not re-affect inventory. It will not update the cost, right?
Right.
So we don't want to do this. Cancel, cancel. So what we want to do is we want to, depending on timing, we want to either void it, reverse it, or return it. Now, if it's the same day, just reverse it. If it's a week later, don't reverse it. Then it looks like you sold it before you received it, and that messes up the math and receiving, and the history gets just blown up. So if it's a week later, and most of the time it is, then just copy it. Click copy on the top, go ahead and flip it to return, and click update, right? Boom, done. It's out. Then I go ahead and click copy again, make sure I'm on a receiver, and now I can go do whatever I want to do, right? I can make these whatever I want to make them. I can fix these any way I need to fix them. You follow?
Yes.
So we got a positive and then we got a negative. Everything's washed out. I'm back to 0. This is the only one that matters at that point. So I make sure that all these are correct. All these are correct. I compare my subtotal up here. I make sure then once the subtotal bounces that I put in anything else I need, like freight. So if it's $25 in shipping, and I got a discount or I don't, and a fee and I don't, whatever, right? I put all those in. I get that total to balance at the bottom, right? And then I pop over here to the payee comments and I make sure that we have the invoice number. So the invoice number is a nice cross-reference to their actual invoice number and their actual invoice date, whatever that is. And I can put those into this document here. Now you can use this calendar, right? Everybody knows how to use the calendar, right? And that then sort of says to me in the retail department, I've seen the invoice. That's the invoice number. And I sent this to accounting to be paid. That's what that says.
Okay.
Now, real quick, because it's on the agenda, I'm going to touch on freight and spreading freight. Although I'm not a big fan of spreading freight, it is possible. What do we have here? Yeah, spread cost. So you see that we have a $25 freight amount here, and if I go to options, spread cost, I can check off freight. Now this first, let's see, this item 814 is $8.50 at cost, and we got $25 in freight, and now it is $8.57, and I got 92 cents left in freight, so it wasn't quite an even spread, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to options. I'm going to go to spread cost and uncheck this and take it back, and it's back to being unspread. Now, very cool trick, and putting freight into the cost of the item is a very nice thing. That's called landed cost, by the way. However, just to make sure we're all on the same page back here in the land of reality, if in retail we're sending data over to accounting, right? Okay, so if accounting has a freight account, they have a place to put freight, we don't spread it over here. We leave it whole. You follow?
Got it.
We are governed by accounting. We got to do apples to apples what they do. If we do something different, it's going to screw them up, and nobody wants to be in retail with an angry accounting department. That's just very bad. When they get their angry eyes and put them on, it's not good for us. So it's got to be apples to apples, exactly the same. Or at the end of the year, what happens is retail gets $1 amount, and then accounting gets a totally different dollar amount, and they don't equal, and everybody goes kind of crazy, right? So if they don't have a freight account, they don't have any place to put freight, then we have to spread it across the items, right? And it becomes cost of goods sold. Now, the downside to that for us in retail is it's a heck of a lot of work. And the other thing that's kind of weird for me is that if you spread the freight across the items, then it's not there to report on anymore. So I can't tell you how much freight you spent last year on a given vendor.
Got it.
Now, for me, if you got a given cost, right? So let's just get a new space here. If we got a given cost, and we keystone that, we double it to get the price, and we add 5%, that's about the same as having a landed cost, right, and doubling it to get that same price, right? In other words, you have to know your freight percent. You got to know what freight costs you. You got to know when you're getting screwed on freight. So the only way you do that is to run reports on how much freight you spent. So anyway, for me, I'm not a big fan of landed cost. I love the number itself. It's a beautiful number, but it's a lot of work to get, and you give up a lot to get it too. So, and most accounting departments, they do in fact have a freight account, and you do need to push your freight into their freight account. So it's usually not an option for us, but that's what goes into that whole conversation. And we'll go ahead and update that. So this one here gets the invoice number. It's the final. If you use the accounting link, the invoice number column is the gatekeeper, so to speak, not to do a Ghostbuster reference, but without an invoice number, it can't pass into the accounting through the accounting link. That's got to have one of those, or it doesn't get to play that game. All right, so moving on down the exciting list here. We're actually doing pretty well. It looks like we'll get on a little early, possibly, and/or leave lots of time for questions. Clean house. So clean house here is the art of keeping our inventory clean. So, and how you doing on your side? You're still good, or you got any questions?
No, but this one coming up is something that I do need to really learn, because they've been asking me to the items and the descriptions. Well,
clean house is taking out dead items. That's what clean house is. So an item has a life. We buy it, we sell it. It becomes discontinued by the vendor, or it sucks and we don't want to sell it anymore. But in any event, we're not buying it anymore. It's just taking up space. So we need to now wave goodbye to it and retire it. So So we then have to clean house on it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go into, let's start by making a mistake. Let's go do it the wrong way. So if we're in here and we have, where's that item we screwed up? It'd be really nice to find that one, but oh well. There it is right here. Nice. So if we go in here and we delete this, it pops up and says, clean house is the preferred method to delete this item. Deleting does not clear associated files. What the hell does that mean? If you're sure and you want to delete this item now, go ahead and choose delete. Well, what that means is that, and let's cancel this here. Let's just cancel and talk about what's called a SID. Oh, we already got them in the screen. Nice. These are atrociously ugly fields. We'll get rid of all this stuff here for now. Right. So those are SIDs. Well, what the heck's a SID? Well, a SID is a system ID, i.e. SID, right? SID is system ID. And this item SID is different for every item, right? And the style SID is the same for like style members, right?
Mm-hmm. It's
a randomly generated number. I'm not sure what the random generation is based on. It could be like the millionth of a second since the year 1980. We're not really sure. It's something like that. It's some random generation that generates a number that is converted into letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we care? Holy crap, right? Well, let's say you're selling a given item. Let's say it's a leather jacket. It does okay. It doesn't do too well. We decide to discontinue it. So we just go in and we delete it like this. And we say, yeah, go ahead, delete it. Yeah, confirm, go for it, yeah. Well, what happened there when it deleted that item, it didn't clear the associated files. It didn't clear the item SID.
Oh, okay.
So we decide to start selling chapstick. And we put some chapstick in, and it happens to land on the same row. Okay. So then we go run a report, and it turns out that it looks like we sold 500 tubes of we sold 500 leather jackets at 99 cents.
Got it.
They're both sharing the same identifier. You follow?
Yes.
So depending on how you build your report, it could misreport. It could grab the wrong description. So clean house is the preferred method to delete items because it clears the SID, it resets the SKU, it cleans out everything so that you're ready to build new product on that given SKU, that 825 there. Now, clean house in itself is super easy. I mean, gosh, clean house is like nice. So let's go into merchandise, clean house. It's right there on the main menu under merchandise. We go in there, we find an item. Let's see if we can find any items. There we go, there's some items. We click on an item, it gets marked, right? And we click clean, and they're gone. That's it. That's clean house. Not really a hard thing. And now, wait a second, hold on. There's some items down here. You have a question?
The item number still stays there, right?
Yes, the item number is just a receptacle. It's just a place to house a description, right? So in this database, and the next database is slightly different, but in this database, if I say I want 50,000 records, it builds me a database with 50,000 records, right? And those 50,000 records, that's a 5, they don't go anywhere. I get to keep those. Those are there. I put product in there, and then I use clean house and delete it back out, and then I put something else in, and I delete it back out, right? That's how it works. Right. So when you're deleting the items, you're not deleting the item numbers.
Oh, okay.
You're just deleting the data that's on them, right? So when I click on one of these, it checks it off, right? Except those aren't getting checked off, are they?
Right.
Because they're obligated. So obligated means that they're either on a purchase order, that we got POTO there, right? Or they're on a TO, or they're on hand. So the asterisk there, the asterisk indicates that you have it on hand. So in other words, obligated means you got dollars tied up in inventory, either coming in or going out, you got dollars. You can only delete things that don't have dollars. They got to be dead on zero, and they can't be on order. Well, what does that mean? That means if we don't keep our POs cleaned up, then old items show as on order, right?
Yeah.
So that's another reason to keep our POs cleaned up and deleted. And we can talk about that more. There's actually another aspect to it, but let's just stay on focus for the moment. So anyway, the problem I find with clean house is not going in here and running a clean house. It's just that I've got, like, you know, a couple of hundred items in here, so I could go in and check these off and click clean house, no problem, right? But when you have like 30,000 or 60,000 or 80,000 items, that's not quite so easy, right? So with clean house, what you want to do is you want to come up with some way of managing this process. So I'm going to pop into system preferences real quick and just show you what I've done for other people. And I think you guys already have it set up, to be honest. In merchandise, under our user-defined fields, typically I would set up a field that would be for, like, deleting items, right? I'm just going to call that delete, and I'm going to call it delete here, just to keep it simple. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and in inventory, I'm going to go into merchandise inventory, and I'm going to add that field to my screen. So if we scroll down here and find that field, delete, and double click it, drag it up here so we can see where someplace that makes sense, maybe after margin. That's probably a good place. All right, so there it is right there. Now I could go up, and if I'm a buyer and I'm in charge of, say, this department here, I could periodically go out and mark items for deletion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that if you've got thousands and thousands of items and you have some buyers, multiple buyers, they buy new stuff all the time. They also need to be responsible for getting rid of old stuff. You know what I mean? Marking it. Now, if you go out and mark it like this, then from time to time, the system operator, whoever's in charge of the system, can come in early one morning when nobody else is using the system. You can go to merchandise clean house. You could go to filtered view. You could say, I need to have my delete field in my filtered view. I could say, okay, I'm going to go find everything that's been marked for clean house, right? Mm-hmm. And you could end up with several hundred items here if the buyers have been busy, right? And then you say, look, mark all. Now, it may be that not all of them get marked. All these got marked. In fact, let's go out and let's do that. Let's just mark some items that we know are obligated real fast. Like these items down here, these are all obligated, right? So if I go in here and I edit one or more of these, I got to turn that off. That is really bugging me. All right, so now we got some items that I'm pretty sure are obligated and some that aren't. So let's go back to clean house. Let's go to filtered view. We got our saved filter now. So let's click OK. There's all the items. 2 are obligated. The other 3 are not. I say mark all. And I say, yeah, and all the items have been marked. I'm like, fine. If they don't go this time, they'll go next time, right?
Right.
If they don't go the next time, they'll go the time after. Once they're marked, and once the buyer says it's okay to delete this, it may be that you still have an on-hand quantity, right? And you may have an on-hand quantity for quite a while. But they're marked. They're going to come up every time, and then we're going to try and clean house on them every time until at some point they actually end up going, right? So does that make sense? on how you sort of manage clean house. Clean house itself is super easy. You go in, you mark an item, you click clean. That's it. But, you know, managing which items should be deleted when you're not the buyer of that department is a much harder thing. So it's best if you have some kind of field that they can, that the person who's managing those items can mark items. Once they've been marked, man, that is the green light, man. Go ahead, run clean house. If they go, they go.
Got it.
All right, PO and SO maintenance. So with POs and sales orders both, let's copy this real quick and let's just go ahead and say save, and let's copy it again and let's say save. So we got like 3 POs out here right now. Boom, I copied it twice. So what I typically do, we used to run reports on these, and there's a couple of things I could show you here, but what we started realizing was that reports, if you run a report on this, you then got to take the report and you got to go act on the data, right? Whereas if you run the same thing using a filtered view, so if I go to filtered view, in the PO list, I have the buyer's field, I have the associate, I have the vendor code, right? I have unfilled percent. So I could say, look, POs that I wrote, and I could say, look, I want to see the ones that are unfilled 0%, right? I want to see all the ones that are done, or unfilled 0 to 10%, for instance. And it shows you all those POs, and then you could right there, instead of holding this in your hand, you could see this on the screen and go, what's on that one? Oh yeah, that's done. Delete. Yes, sure, archive it. Boom, right? Then you could go back and look at cancel filter, filtered view. You could say clear all. And now I personally, I'm going to right click, go to design mode. I'm going to find the ship and cancel dates, grab those 2. And I'm going to right click again and go back to criteria mode. So I could also say things like, show me things that are 010101 to T enter. Show me things that are either past ship or ship today, right? No records found. But you see where I'm going with that, right?
Yes.
I could look for things that are past ship date. I could look for things that are past cancel. Now, typically the order date is whatever you felt like writing the order, right? The ship date is the beginning of the window. The cancel date is the end of the window. So it needs to ship in that little window between ship and cancel, right? That's how it's supposed to work. So if I say, 2 weeks ship date and a 6-week cancel date, then they got a month to give me the damn product, right?
Right.
Now, in a perfect world, and 99% of the time, the PO comes in, we receive against it, we then do a little maintenance, we delete it and archive it. It never makes it to cancel date. You see what I'm saying? So if you ever filter for things that are past cancel, you should always get nothing found, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I say, and you know how I'm doing this, right? You know how I'm getting that number in there? I'm typing the letter T like Thomas, and I'm pressing enter. T enter is today.
Today's date. Got it.
Yeah, and Y is not yesterday, so don't bother asking. All right, so everybody asks it, so let's just get it out of the way. So anyway, if I filter for that, I mean, really, a cancel date, things should be deleted long before they get to cancel date. That should be safe. But if you ever find POs that are in there past cancel, that's a bad sign. They need to go away. All right, so that's how I maintain it right there. I go to filtered view. We can certainly run reports on them. And let's also take a look at two other aspects of maintenance here. One is that when you send them to archive, they're then in archive. That doesn't mean they get deleted. We've got to also maintain the archive file. Now, if we go into archive, there's a thing here called purge. Now, the beauty is that you click purge, it gives you a date. If you like the date, you click OK, and it takes everything older than that date. So let's try it. Let's put it on 5/24 here. Let's see what happens. OK, and you see it purged that one that we had up there. So In Clean House, if it's on an order, active or archived, it's not eligible to be deleted. So when you're doing a clean house, you got to go in here first and purge your old POs. Now, if you haven't resurrected it in a year, don't hold your breath. You're probably not going to need it, right?
Right.
So usually the date range is set. The default date range is like 90 days ago, but you can set it in system preference for as long as you want the window to be. But really, if you deleted it and it's been in archive for more than 90 days and you haven't needed it, you're probably not going to need it. Now, just to go back and underscore a point, vouchers, there is no delete for vouchers, right?
Right.
So a receiving record of what I got, that's a permanent, uninterruptible audit trail. We could even go so far as to give you the evil trick question. And the trick question is, when does a purchase order affect inventory? And the trick answer is never. Only receiving transactions affect inventory. Right?
Right.
So the PO, once it's delivered the voucher, if there's nothing else on it, it's done. It's lived its life. Delete it, archive it, and then when it comes time, purge it. So, right now, the technician's toolkit, this last little hot button item down here. If we go into tools, more, there's a thing called, and that's wrong. That's not the technician's toolkit. I don't know how that got in there. That's the reference to version 9, by the way. But in version 8, this is a webinar on version 8. It's called Data Verification System. So that on the agenda there, which I copied into that HTML document, that's wrong. It is in fact tools, more, data verification systems. And that's how you get to the tool. Now, when we load data verification system, under maintenance, there is a purge section. And surprisingly, there's a purge PO section. Now in here, we can say we want to purge active and we want them to be archived. And we can choose what, if any, filter criteria we want. So I'm going to choose order date because if I choose ship date or unfilled percent, I'm not going to be, I only got 2 POs out there, right? So if we want to see anything in the menu, I got to pick something that'll work. But typically we would filter by either ship date or unfilled percent, kind of like we are. Like unfilled and old, then take them. I don't even want to see them. If they're 100% filled and they're old, then I don't need to waste my time, right? So I am going to put this on undefined and delete this out and delete this out. Perfect. And I'm just going to say today because I know this will work that way. So when we filter for old POs and or unfilled POs and we click start, it goes out and finds every PO that qualifies. Of course, I have 2. That's all I have, right? And we can, if we want to, here in this tool, we could highlight one and unmark it. We could stop it from being deleted. We could save it. If that makes sense?
Yes.
Or not. We could leave it with a green light. And so if you have a lot of POs that haven't been maintenance in a couple of years or something like that, not that that ever happens out there, you might start by saying, look, everything that's more than a year old, especially if it's 0% unfilled, then just take it. Just do the purge. Let it go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we click next down here. Application is ready to write changes back. We click yes. It changes them. And then if we close our data verification systems and go into purchasing purchase orders, we got nothing. And if we back out of here and go to archived POs, there's our 2 POs, right?
Right.
Now, of course, an archive PO, and the reason that Clean House doesn't work when you have an archive PO is that any archive PO could be restored with the click of a mouse, right? Boom. Just that fast, I can make those active again. Now, there's one thing that's not on here that I would recommend, and that is that if you're going to do a clean house, yes, I totally recommend coming into archive POs, right, and doing your purge. Absolutely, that's really a really useful thing is to clean that up ahead of time before you get in there and find out you can't delete something you want to delete, right? The second thing, though, that's not in the outline that I would also recommend would be that you go to Tools, and that you go to More, and that you go to this thing here called Recalc Committed. Typically, the Clean House tool uses the committed file, and if you don't know what that is, we should look at that, but it uses the committed file to determine whether it's on order or on hand or whatever is going on with it, right? So when you purge a bunch of POs, you know, when you send them into archive, it's a wise move to recalc your committed real fast. Now, you just highlight it, you click OK, it boom comes back in like a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, says new committed file has been successfully created. It's super painless. So that's under Tools, More, Recalc Committed, and that makes your committed file nice and clean and ready to do a clean house.
Okay.
And do you guys know what committed is, by the way?
No.
Well, let's just make sure we understand that. So let's take an item. Let's take whatever, 810, 811 here. Now here it doesn't make a lot of sense to do this, but I'll start and I'll show it to you first here. There's committed right there. So, oh, I see it. I'm just blind today. Fine. So if I'm on an item here and I click committed, it shows that it's got 2 POs on it and 1 transfer order, right? Well, duh, I'm sitting on PO number 2, right? But that's not really where it's handy. Where it's handy is in other places. Like here, I'm sitting in inventory on item 812. I'm like, do I have those on order? Committed. Boom. Right? Oh, I do. It's on this PO and that one. Ooh, I'd like to see that PO. Double click it. Boom. You're on the PO. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm back to inventory. Right? Highlight a different item. Go to committed. I want to see that PO or not. I want to see that TO, whatever. Double click any of these. It takes you to the document. A very slick little tool. Now, in the committed, if you are multiple stores, you may choose to see the company, right? Or you may choose to see a selected store. So you can flip it back and forth. You can toggle it into company mode. At the top, you see CMP up here versus store 1. You can also look at the style. Like right now we're looking at one item, right? We're looking at item 814. That's the one that's highlighted. If I click into style, though, look at how the numbers all jump up. So 6 pieces for the item 814, but 65 pieces total for the style planned available. So committed is just a very cool function. It's everywhere. So for instance, I could be selling one of these, right? I could be here at point of sale, and I'd be ringing them up, and the guy could say, "Oh, I just bought your last one. When are you going to get more?" You could go, "I don't know. Let me just take a look." Oh, looks like we have some purchase orders coming in pretty quick. So you see, it's available on all documents, anything, transfer, receipt, purchase order, obviously, inventory. Committed function is a pretty cool function. You just have to be on an item and then find the committed button. If you don't have it, you can always, if you're an admin, you can just go to menu designer and check it off, right? That's how this one works. If you see a check mark next to it, it shows up. If you don't see a check mark, it does not show up. So if I take that off, it goes away. If I put that on, it stays. All right, so how are we doing? Do we have any questions? Do we feel pretty good about what we've seen so far?
Yes. No questions yet.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, think that's about it on our agenda. So I guess if there's no other questions and no other things we need to go through, I guess we can call it a wrap here.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to tell you guys to have a excellent evening because it's a little later there, and I will email you those documents right now.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. You guys have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.